guys. Welcome to the Reclaiming Hope podcast. This is episode 9. The next couple of episodes, we're going to be getting into all of the emotions that come with loss and infertility. So this is our little emotional series, if you would call it. So we're going to be talking about anxiety today. We're going to start off with just the simple definition of anxiety, and then what that looks like for Haley and I. We both have dealt with anxiety prior to all of this, and then you add in the loss of everything. And so it's difficult to manage, and it's difficult to walk this path, dealing with some of the things that we've dealt with. So Haley's going to start us off with the definition.
Yeah, because it's legitimately a mind game. So getting yourself out of that is sometimes hard, that constant flow of thoughts. But yeah, we thought we'd start off with the definition. Most people have heard of anxiety, depression, all of these feelings, but the definition is intense, excessive, and persistent worrying and fear about something that may happen, may occur. And the hard part, at least post miscarriage and loss, is that sometimes our brain can convince us that something is going to happen again. Like, we have things to fuel that fire, right? Like someone who's pregnant might be fearful that they'll lose the baby, but when we've already lost, that's like the number one thing that's only going on in our brain. We're not really thinking of a successful pregnancy. So we already, some of us know those symptoms of like heart rate, rapid breathing, sweating, overthinking, not sleeping, not eating. So it's a lot, and it's taxing, and it's mostly derived from stress. And then telling someone who's anxious to not be stressed is stressful.
Just don't think about it.
Yeah, it's a lot. And even like, we've been sitting here for a few minutes trying to get ourselves ready for this episode, because when you struggle with anxiety and then you have to go talk about anxiety, you're anxious. Like, you have it. You have it at different parts. It's worse at other times. It's getting the best of you some days. And then to go sit down and record yourself saying, oh yeah, like, I'm anxious right now and I really don't want to talk about it, and I can feel myself, like my heart rate's going up, my watch is telling me, and my, all of these things. And it's just that clouded mindset. So bear with us, because we're literally trying to articulate it to you guys. So someone else is anxious right now, they're like, oh yeah, that's me. That's where I'm at. And then family members can be like, oh, that's when Haley's saying that. She's really just like boggled down by all of her thoughts. Yeah. So bear with us. But yeah, so anxiety. Ready?
Yeah.
Want to talk about your kind of piece on it, or like what you've felt in different parts of it?
Sure.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Love to talk about it.
So we've kind of broken this down into like a rough timeline of when this came, and what it looks like on the outside and what we're thinking on the inside. So some of those inner thoughts that we're having. So the rough timeline of this emotion all the time.
We wrote notes, and Kelsey's like, when are we anxious? And then she wrote all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this emotion was here prior to loss. So that's, I think I've said this in a previous episode. I've been seeing a Christian therapist for about 2.5 years, and it all started from my anxiety issues. And I never really had a ton of, like, especially not in college, didn't have any anxiety issues. And then it kind of crept up in the last couple of years. And I did wrestle of like, this is getting worse. I need to go talk to somebody about it, because it was affecting my physical health. I started all this like gastro stuff, and I was having stomach aches all the time. So I still kind of deal with some of that too, of the stomach, but I know when I have a really bad stomach ache, it's because I've been really anxious, either like the day before, or, a certain amount of time that I've been anxious too long, that it's like affected my body. So, and that was all pre-loss. So, and then you
add on,
and then you add the loss to it.
Just a spiral.
It's rough. It's rough. So you have a little bit of anxiety with the first pregnancy. You know that it can happen, right? You're not blind to any of that, but the reality of it doesn't really sink in a whole lot, right? And then with my second pregnancy, it was rough every day. Every day.
I love her, but it was rough.
It was hard. I just don't think I was fully prepared for all of it, of what came. And the enemy was definitely at me. Every day I was crying. I was overthinking things. When Bennett and I were attempting to conceive again, I was crying. Like every month it was our time to try and make a family. I was crying after every time, and it had nothing to do with Bennett. It had nothing to do with the act. It just had to do with the fact of this is probably going to result in me getting pregnant.
Or not. And
Or
they're
not.
both both cause. Like, what if I'm not pregnant this time, then this time, and this now it goes back a whole month and your brain starts going. And
it just goes down this
what if
rabbit
I
hole.
get pregnant again and all
Yes.
of this happens? And
Yeah. So all of those emotions pop up the minute you're like, okay, this could be a thing. And it has nothing to do with anything other than I'm terrified. I'm just terrified of doing this whole thing all over again. So that's been my biggest thing is like, I don't know, the chance of loss again is just, it's immense for me. So.
yeah. Yeah, for me, when we were trying to figure out when we were anxious, like when we were jotting it down, for me, I feel like it was actually recently because I was anxious, like, yeah, I might lose, but then I've just been processing like the loss and the sadness, really, even when we were attempting, like, yeah, to get anxious at different times, but it wasn't until I started going to or leading up to all of these new doctor's appointments that it set in. Like the hardest thing I had to say out loud, I think I said it to you the first time, was the hardest thing to process is there was some kind of comfortability in knowing that there might be something wrong with me, like wrong with my body to conceive, that each time we were trying, if I took the test and it was positive, I was like, oh, cool. But when it was negative, it was like, oh no, I'm sad, So then now I have to like accept that I'm going to have to do these tests again. I'm going to get all these calls at work. I've already done that where I get bad news on the phone and then I listen back and I listen to the voicemail and what if they fix me? And now I'm going to be pregnant again.
Yep.
And it's like all these things that obviously I've thought about, but until it started coming real close is when I started spiraling. And it also didn't help if you guys have been tracking that this all happened in the month of May. So I have all this anxiety leading up to the month of May, baby's due date, my doctor's appointment, Mother's Day, and a few other factors, just like life factors that were causing me all this stress. And it was a hot mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, just recognizing like, okay, so what if I get pregnant again? And everyone's like, yeah, but isn't that what you want? Yes. And you're like, yes, it's what I want. But now I'm overthinking. What if I lose again? Can I do all this again? This has been too exhausting. I can't do this. And you just the hamster wheel of all these thoughts creep in, And
I remember specifically saying that out loud to multiple people when we started trying again after we lost the first time with Camille. I was like, I don't think I can do this again. Like, I don't think I can handle another loss. I don't think I can do it. Lo and behold, now we're two losses in.
I said that to her once and I was like, yeah. But it's true. Like my biggest fear right now is getting pregnant and losing it again, losing another baby, not that it's going to go well.
Yeah.
So now I'm anxious for all of these doctor's appointments, the results of it, what that means, what do I decisions, and all that comes with that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but for that week leading up to like the realization of I'm anxious, like coming to terms with I'm acknowledging the emotion of anxiety only made me more anxious. I was sitting at church and I looked down and my heart rate, my resting heart rate was like, I don't even remember, something in the 120. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're anxious, you need to calm down. And then I'm trying to breathe. Yeah. And then people are talking to me and I was like actually not there. And I was like, I need to go home and I'm super anxious and all of these things. Like I wasn't sleeping. I was only thinking about that. I'm not eating. And I was like, I'm having another panic attack and I haven't had one in years and this is exhausting. You need to stop being anxious. You're like, okay, how,
Right. That's what I tell my therapist that all the time. I'm like, I know that I'm anxious. In the moment, I know that. How do I stop it? That's my problem. I know that I'm anxious, but I can't do anything about it.
The awareness for people who are anxious
Makes it worse. Yeah.
Because you're aware that you're anxious. You are aware that it's going to not help you conceive. You're aware that it's making your husband not know how to deal with you. You're aware that, and then someone says to stop and you're like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I'll do that. And then you're like, okay.
But how? Yeah. How do we move forward from here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I remember you as well, like during your pregnancy, over analyzing everything. So like you were worried, like, I'm not as sick. I'm not as this. I don't know what other symptoms you were feeling, but you were comparing it and you were like, oh, well, I lost the first baby. I lost Camille. So now I should be feeling better than that or worse than that. And you were just all in your head about all of the things.
Over analyzing everything. I'd wake up one morning and I hadn't gotten up to pee that night. And I'm like, I didn't get up to pee.
I always pee.
I always pee. I always get up at 2 a.m. and pee. Like, I must be miscarrying. So it's just, I'm constantly looking for things. I've gotten better with it as time has progressed because that second pregnancy, I learned a lot from, and I wasn't letting God in. That was the problem.
Yeah.
I was letting the enemy dictate that whole pregnancy. I did have some uncomfortable symptoms. The cramping was like 24/7. So that did not help. But that was like his door. And I let him wide in with that of like, my boobs don't hurt as much. I'm not peeing as much. I'm not as nauseous today. So it's just like the constant cycle of.
But that's what I'm saying. That's fueling your fire because then you lost Ethan. And now all of a sudden it's just like, well, I was right.
Yeah.
And he, that's, so I was right to be anxious. So I'm allowed to be like that when these things happen again type of, it fuels this. All you need is, the enemy needs 5% truth.
Yep, exactly.
You know what I mean? 95% lies. So he's like, you were right. Remember, you should just always be anxious because it's what keeps you on your toes.
Right.
And you're like, no, that's what drives me bonkers, Like the definition in itself was like, we were laughing at it. Intense, excessive, persistent. We're like, yeah.
Yes.
Like that checks out.
All of those things.
It's not forgiving in any way. It doesn't hold up a little bit just because it knows you're going through something hard. It's like full force.
Yeah.
All the time. Overwhelming.
Yeah.
So the one thing that we wanted to talk about, and I know we're not going to pretend to be like, and we let God in and everything was fine. We were chill. That's not always the case. Like sometimes I would send her things and she's like, I know. I need God. I know that. Cool. You read a scripture. I go to calm down and I'm like, okay, it went from 120 to 118, my heart rate. That's about it. But one thing that's been helping me work through everything, first of all, I was reading scripture while I was waiting for my nurse for my first thing, and I could see my heart rate going down. Yeah. And I was like, wow. But one thing for me is I'm reading through all the Psalms in order right now, and like not just reading it and going, I know I should believe this, so I'm going to read it. And you like your heart posture is still like, but I'm anxious still, you know, but like sitting on it. And we have a few verses of like, okay, what is he saying? What does this actually mean? Have I been doing it? You know? So the first one is, people might have heard this, but 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, cast all of your anxiety on him because he cares for you. And if you just say that as like, you just let him take it because he cares for you. You're like, okay. But am I sitting there and I'm like, have I given him all my anxiety? Like, have I just been talking to Kelsey and we bounce back and forth and we're now both anxious and we understand where we're coming from? But have I like prayed saying, take away this anxiety? Have I written out to him what's making me anxious and like letting it go because he cares for me, Because when it's not gone, you're like, does he care for me? He does. So like letting it sit there. Next one is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us the spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control. So the definition of anxiety has the word fear in it. Persistent worrying and fear. that's not a fruit of God.
Yeah.
It's not anything that he dropped in just for kicks.
Like, not for funsies.
Yeah. In Psalm 94:19, when anxiety was great within me, your consolation brought me joy.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah. Because the enemy's job is to steal our peace and joy, you know? So, and he, like, it's there. This was written however long ago, you know? It's not like anxiety's new. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So he's like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
There's situations in your life that are causing you to be anxious because you're stressed and because you lost. But what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? Not let it control our actions and our thoughts.
I saw a church sign the other day when I was driving, and it said, like, pray without ceasing because the enemy prays without ceasing.
P-R-E-Y.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, oh, that's a good one. It's true, because I've been doing this more frequently lately one of my like daily prayers is to, if I'm getting anxious, please just like help me surrender it.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing is I don't surrender it. I internalize because I do those things. That's just who I am. I internalize and
she does internalize.
Round and round and round until I've created this whole masterpiece of like the what ifs.
This is why I am the way.
This is what could happen. And so that's not me surrendering.
I do that audibly. I just like talk. And then all of a sudden I get to here and I'm like, so there it is. That's why I'm stressed, you know, but it's still the same concept. I'm telling you, I'm telling Dom, which are good. Like, you understand where I'm coming from. Dom's going to be there to like support me. I'm telling my friends, but I'm not like going to God and giving it to him, which he's like, just pass it right here. Just tell me.
That should be our first go-to no matter what. And I'm by no means where I should be with that. And I mean, I would love to get there one day. I don't know that I ever will be because I'm human. But that should be our first stop when we have anxiety of like, please just help me get rid of this.
And it's not going to take away the fact that we lost babies and the fact that it might happen again. It just gives us his peace that surpasses all understanding. That's all that's all he
That's it.
But having peace through a situation allows us to do things with clarity and direction instead of fear controlling while simultaneously going through that process.
Sure.
Okay. So on the flip side, we both wrote down do you have anything else? Because I'm going to go to hopefuls.
Okay. No, I think we tackled it.
We're writing down our hopefuls separately, and then we said them out loud, and they're pretty similar, but it's appropriate for this episode. So what is your hopeful, Kels?
For slower schedules. So we've just been go. Track season is crazy. We coach a track team, and then Bennett coaches a track team separately. So nights that he's gone, I'm home. And nights that I'm gone, he's home. Did I do that right?
They don't see each other.
Flip-flop. So he's home, I'm gone, whatever. So we just don't see each other from basically like end of March to like mid-June. And weekends get crazy. There's track meets. There's other things. We still like to socialize with people. So it's just been a long couple of months of what feels like, obviously I see him every night, but it doesn't feel like that sometimes when we're just constantly going. We're exhausted by the time we get home. It's just like, hey, how's it going? Eat dinner, shower, nighty night. So we had a date night this week, which was great. Say what?
You're kidding.
Stop. So it was nice, and I think we're finally getting to a point where we can do things on the weekend for just ourselves, and it'll be nice. So I'm excited for a slower schedule, which means less stress and everything that comes with that. So less anxiety.
So that's what I wrote down too. I wrote managing my stress, open schedule, and prioritizing my relaxing time. Like last week, if anyone knows me, last week I did nothing. I took Sadie for a walk. I laid on the hammock. I don't even know what else I did. And that's just not normal in my hectic schedule of coaching and work and friends and family and church and this. And I plug in wherever I can because I'm very social, but recognizing like those were good things, but was I like filling them in instead of taking the time to just relax? So yeah, just managing my stress in healthy ways, but relaxing and literally I don't know what to, like open schedules. And we both wrote that. And I'm like, that's what I wrote. But neither of us were changing it. So it's appropriate for this. We got
we didn't talk about it. We just wrote it down and then realized that we had written the same thing essentially.
Yeah.
But it's important for this one because when you, I don't know, our culture is so like pack the schedule and be busy. Like when you see somebody and it's been a while, you're like, oh, how's it going? And you're like, oh, super busy. Like that's just like the natural response to it. And that's just our culture. And I think we need more of like, I haven't really been up to a whole lot. Just like been,
it's not normal. I don't know how long it'll stay, but I am trying to get in the mindset of like having my mornings to read and journal and saying no to friends. Like last night, I actually said no to someone and went on a date with my husband.
Yeah. Look at there, a date night and a date night in the same week.
I know.
It's impressive. It's impressive. So,
yes, we're hopeful for our awareness to calm down and breathe.
Decrease the anxiety. So, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
That wasn't as bad as I thought.
No, we tackled it.
We're good.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it speaks to somebody today. A little insight on our brains and our hearts. So, yeah.
Cool. Yep. We'll see you guys next time for episode 10. And I think it's anger.
Anger.
So,
Yeah.
All right.
That'll be fun.
Thanks, guys. See ya.